Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. Before we introduce our guest, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift. So if your district needs unrestricted funds, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay, today we have the superintendent from Seguin ISD, and I love that area, by the way. I'm just putting that out there. I used to live out in Canyon Lake, Seguin. It's a beautiful area, and we have Superintendent Vijil from Dr. Vijil from Seguin ISD. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the invite and to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I know how busy a superintendent's schedule can be. Now, just to kick things off, just so people get to know you a little bit, could you share a little bit about your background?
Well, a little bit about my background. I've been in public education for over 30 years. My teaching areas was in English language arts and in science at the middle school level. And I've worked in different districts, both in Texas and Indianapolis, and so have just a broad perspective of different districts. And I guess what I ultimately have decided is that kids are kids, and I love them no matter what district they're in. I have experience as a principal for 10 years at a middle school in Spring ISD, and then back to my stomping grounds in El Paso, and did some work in Canutillo and Fabens ISD, and then I landed here as the superintendent in Seguin ISD. So just a vast number of roles that I've had.
So cool. And curious, what school were you at Spring ISD?
I had the great privilege of opening up Bailey Middle School, Rick Bailey Middle School. And so it was just a phenomenon time for me. And it's one of my favorite roles was being a principal.
Yeah, I was curious. I went to elementary school at Meyer Elementary in
Oh,
Spring.
yeah. Yes. Well, I also worked at Bammel Middle School. So
Oh,
Meyer
okay.
fed into Bammel. And so, yeah, it's great experiences, a lot of learning. I was a teacher there, assistant principal, and executive director, all in Spring ISD. So was there for 19 years and just really appreciate the experiences that I had and the learning opportunities.
Yeah, that's a big district. I want to say my principal in elementary that you probably never met, Mr. Cooper. I don't know if that rings a bell. I think it was Cooper.
I did hear the name, but I think he was not there when I was there.
Yeah, he was already a little older when I was in elementary school, anyways. But well, it's a small world. So actually our previous guest was from the Spring area as well, right? And so hey, we're on a roll here. So awesome. Um, well,
All things
so
Spring
now we've learned
ISD.
that's right. We need to have a podcast category for North Houston or something. So yeah, and I'm in Kingwood, so not too far from
Oh,
Spring as
yes.
well. So yeah, what are you passionate about? I mean, Spring ISD, that's a big district, a lot going on there. You got a lot of experience, and you went from the busy city out to Seguin, right? But Seguin's growing, I know a lot. But what are you passionate about in public ed these days?
Um, in a word, I can say that I'm passionate about equity. A second word, opportunity. I think that the global view of education and opportunities that we can afford students has opened up so much that we can be innovative and try to think of how can we best place our programming to fit the needs of kids. And so that's really anywhere. I had the unique perspective when I worked in Canutillo ISD and Fabens along the border in El Paso. And so I get that perspective of equity. So there's always equity issues that need to be tackled, whether it's gifted and talented programs or funding for special programs such as special education, CTE. Are we really and truly opening up the doors to everyone that wants to partake in certain programming? Or are we ourselves the obstacles? And so that's a question that I ask all the time is, well, why do we have it set up that way? And just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to continue doing things.
Yeah, makes sense. So there's a lot to unpack there. So you covered a lot. I mean, as somebody as smart as you, a doctor, obviously you have a big broad focus on a lot of different things. That's awesome. What actionable steps are happening in your world related to those things?
I'll talk about two programs. I'll talk about from our very youngest students to our graduating seniors and the opportunities for our 3 and 4 year old children. I was at that campus yesterday at the Ball Early Childhood Center, where it's full of 3 and 4 year olds who were partaking in a vote of their own. They were voting for one of two books, library books, which one they liked more. And just the concepts and the language and the bilingual effort that I saw as I stepped into bilingual classes that I thought were just a unique perspective on that aspect of equity, because we start them as young as 3 years old, 3 year olds and 4 year olds, and we're equipping them with language and strengthening their language skills in both languages so that they're prepared for kindergarten. It sounds a little crazy, right? We're preparing them for kindergarten. So by the time they are starting their kindergarten formative years, they've already got a strong sense of just a foundation of instruction. And of course, not all 3 and 4 year olds or all of our kindergarten students go to preschool, but a good number of them do, and they qualify. And so we look at really the biggest qualifier, well, the two of them, is that they're equity, that they are disadvantaged in their income, and they also probably may have Spanish as their first language at home. So we endorse the bilingual efforts. And in this district, last year was the first year that students who are enrolled in K-5 bilingual courses, dual language programming, are able to receive a seal of literacy on their transcript that equates to a high school course credit. And so
Wow, okay.
by the time they left 5th grade, they've acquired a credit for Spanish in high school. So that's what I mean by starting with them very, very young. And so we bank on what we consider is a strength, their bilingualism. And so we just reinforce that through our dual language classes and continue the effort of teaching them in both languages. It's a beautiful thing really to see in classrooms. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we have our CTE programming. And so we're trying to prepare students for either college or their career or the military, whichever one is they choose. And so we have just a wide array of programming available to high school students. They have a lot of choices, for sure, choices that maybe you and I didn't have when we were going to school. And so as much as we can, we try to involve some sort of service project in with any of the programs that we have, trying to teach our students that it's important to learn a trade or to prepare for college, but it's also important to give back to your community. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. Our cosmetology students, they cut hair for some of our students that are in the special education, receiving special services, or they go out to the community and offer haircuts, or they'll have a night of glam for kids that they get their nails done and their hair done. Our construction program has really a lot of efforts to give back to the community. We are just launching next week, I believe, the construction of a tiny home. They've also built an
Oh, wow.
entire
Okay.
wall for House for Habitat. The beds that they make the bed frames, and with a partner that contributes the mattresses. We don't want any Seguin children to sleep on the floor. And so we'll get beds to them. So these are all efforts to give back to the community and build up our businesses and our partnerships with the community.
Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned sleeping on the floor, right? So I mean, would that happen if, I mean, I guess Seguin has, yeah. Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think that we have a large percentage. I'm not remembering right this second what the percentage of economically disadvantaged families is. Um, so much so that we are a Title I district. So our entire district, because we are considered Title I, means that we have enough families percentage wise that they would be on free or reduced lunch. That's what that means. And
Yeah.
so we get some federal funding to assist us with that. And what that means is that if if families are struggling for free and reduced meals for eating, it means they're probably struggling with everything else. And so we have really another partnership, communities and schools. We work with them to identify the families who are in most need so that we don't have children sleeping on the floor. And so I think it's just all this teamwork, people working together to identify the needs of our particular families and what can we do about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense why you were talking equity initially, just because of that need there. So it sounds like from the equity piece standpoint, there's people that don't speak, students that don't speak English, and they're need some additional support and guidance and then, but once they get to that level, they're bilingual, and then you'll have some programs in place through the CTE and the tiny homes to where they're almost self-sufficient, or they're marketable to get a job at some point. Uh, is that fair analysis or uh,
It's
summary?
a beautiful summary, Gary. It means I
Okay.
did a good job of explaining things. And these last year, it's just it's surprising, really, in Texas, just how much what the growth is and where we might be receiving families from. Last year, we had an influx of families that came from Cuba, and so they were all housed in neighborhoods very close to one another. And so their ethnicity, their experiences are not necessarily the same from the students that might come from Mexico or Ecuador or different parts. And so it's not just, oh, it's bilingual, it's Spanish. There's so much more complex than that.
How, just random question. So if I hadn't lived in Canyon Lake, I would have never knew Seguin existed probably. So how do all these people end up in Seguin? It's just interesting how that.
I asked the same question. I said, it must have been somebody that came and said, come on over here. This is a great place to live. And we agree
It
with
it
them.
it well, it is truly like a unique spot. Like it's right off I-10 there. I mean, it's a beautiful area. You got the lake just, I don't know, 20 minutes away. And it's and I'm I if I remember correctly, it's kind of growing, right? Don't you have a lot of new businesses and things popping up around there?
Absolutely. It's I always talk about just different vantage points and perspectives that people have and experiences. And so I feel very fortunate to have worked in a number of school districts and just gain a lot of experiences and learning. And this town is growing, and we see the housing just booming in particular parts of town. And so here's an example. We were super excited a couple of months ago when they said, hey, Seguin community, Chick-fil-A is coming here. What? We no longer have to go to New Braunfels. We no longer have to go travel for Chick-fil-A. And so the businesses are
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, I do have the Jack in a Box. I know you got the Jack in a Box there, so but
It's not like we don't have anything, but for whatever reason, there was a big
yeah,
hoopla for
that's
Chick-fil-A,
awesome.
and we are growing, and we will have additional shopping areas and stores, department stores, and it's just an example of the city, the county, everybody coming together to make sure that this community is well established as we're growing out. What are the needs of the community? Well, department stores, grocery stores, and all of that. So
Very
yes.
cool. Well, I know we're running short on time here, and I feel like everybody should have a good understanding of the district and the kind of the lay of the land. So what's exciting that's coming up in your district? Just to, if someone's listening in and they're thinking about maybe moving somewhere, or maybe they just want to know what's exciting that's happening. What do you have to share around that? Like in the future, horizon.
Um, well, we have a number of projects as far as previous bonds elections that we had that were successful. And so we're building an agricultural center where that will, I think, afford again some equity there for students who can't afford to house their animals somewhere. And really big development is it's called the Irma Lewis Seguin Outdoor Learning Center. So we acquired just acres and acres of this. Well, if it wasn't labeled this, if it's not labeled a state park, but that's exactly what it is. It's just acres and acres and acres. And so we are fully utilizing every opportunity to have students go out there and fish or throw darts or just have their classroom outside. And it's of course in our area. Kids get on the bus, they drive over there for a few minutes, and they get to experience nature. They get to experience the classroom outdoors. And so we're busy dedicating all of the lessons that are aligned to the state standards and all of that. And teachers sign up, and they take their kids to the outdoor learning center, where I've seen kids just blossom and thrive. And so this is a K-12 initiative. It's an effort for everyone to go out there and get this different, innovative experience of learning. That's
Yeah,
what I'll
wow.
plug.
I'm jealous. I wish I was still in school. That's so cool. It's um yeah, because it's such a beautiful area. I imagine being outdoor learning in Seguin. I mean, there's probably just so much. I mean, just a
It's
breath of fresh air. Yeah.
it's a breath of fresh air. I can't even describe everything that is available out there. It's just like if you were walking onto a state park. And so we're just trying to develop different areas so that we can include more and more things for just to have these students experience things that they might not otherwise experience. And so here we're affording you this opportunity to go fishing. If you've never gone fishing, here's a fishing line. And so let's see what you catch today. Or just the all sorts of science lessons that are going on right now outside.
Yeah, it just sounds like the students are getting some really good life skills, like to be prepared for life, which is awesome.
In the end, that's really what we're trying to do. Is our vision is to go from exceptional students to exceptional citizens, and that's what we try. We vie for that every single day, to make sure that we're building an individual that can think for themselves, take care of themselves, and contribute back to their society.
Very, very good. Yeah, this has been definitely a unique podcast. I've never heard this type of value provided to students. So that's so cool. Um, Last question before we close out, and really do appreciate you being on the podcast today. If there's another leader, is there another leader, a superintendent possibly that you would recommend come on the podcast?
Um, he probably would kill me for this, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the name of Xavier de la Torre. He's the superintendent in Isleta ISD, and they're just doing some magnificent things in Isleta ISD. He can tell you about them. It's actually where I got my start. That's where I first was a teacher in Isleta, in El Paso, and they just have a unique perspective.
Love it. We will definitely reach out to him and see if he wants to come on the podcast. And just want to thank you again for your time today.
Tell him that V said
All
you have
right.
to do it.
All right. Absolutely. I'll let him know for sure. Okay, well, there we have it. For those that haven't been tuning in, now you have another district with something very unique that may resonate with you and your family. So, thank you all for tuning in. And before we close out, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor one more time, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars in public education in the form of a free gift. So, if your district needs higher teacher salaries or whatever it may need, reach out to Ideal Impact. And for those that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.